The 6 to 7 Figure Show, episode 101. Let's hit it.
Broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun outside Phoenix, Arizona, this is the 6 to 7 Figure Show. Tired of working so hard and having no time? Take your six-figure practice and turn it to a thriving seven-figure enterprise. And now, your host, author, speaker, mentor, and strategist, Frank Bria.
Hey everyone, welcome to the 6 to 7 Figure Show. I'm your host, Frank Bria, and in today's episode, we are going to focus on enrollment. But first, quick message from our sponsor. This episode of the 6 to 7 Figure Show is brought to you by High Ticket Program. What is standing between your six-figure practice and a seven-figure enterprise? Just 12 projects. That's it. Execute those projects and you are there. In the High Ticket Program Accelerator, we guide you through every step of growth and scale in a process we call LEAP. Imagine having a world-class project team guiding you and your team through every step of pain-free growth, all with the goal of becoming a seven-figure enterprise and moving away from painful, time-consuming business operations and client delivery. Get a taste of LEAP in your own business by downloading our free high-ticket program core offer Black Book. It contains more than 60 pages of standard operating procedures for your business, including onboarding, customer service, graduation, financial management, and a lot more. You can get that for free by going to the show's homepage, 6to7.show. That's 6to7.show for your free Black Book. And I am absolutely pleased to be introducing today's guest. Peter Frumenti is the creator of the Authentic Enrollment Sales Process. He helps coaches, consultants, and digital marketers build a sustainable business fast by attracting and enrolling the right clients to work with, and then building an authentic and scalable sales process that allows them to go from solopreneur to entrepreneur fast. Peter, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Frank. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So this concept of, it's interesting, the word enrollment that gets used in our space now for, because I'm not a digital marketer by birth, and so coming into this, 10 years ago or so, you hear the word enrollment, and for those of us who did sort of corporate sales or whatever, it's kind of an interesting play on words. So why the word enrollment? What does that mean different than the word sales for people? Or is it just like a, quick shell game of swapping out words?
Yeah. So, there's a couple of reasons why. One of the biggest things is that all of the clients that we work with are in the coaching, the consulting, or digital marketing, industries. Yeah. And I look at those as transformational, right? If you're a good digital marketer, you're helping your clients make more money, get more leads, so they've got a scalable business. If you're, a coach or a consultant, you're bringing some expertise to the table that's allowing your client to, change their life or their business in some transformational way. And so there's two reasons why we use the word enrollment. One is you're typically, enrolling them into your coaching program, your consulting program, your ongoing digital marketing, retainer, whatever it is. And so that's part of it. But the bigger part of it is that sales is a thing of the past, right? People hate to be sold these days. It's not like it was, 50 years ago, right? Like somebody knocks on your door, people are hiding behind their couch, like, oh my God, somebody's knocking on our door, right? If your phone rings, if we didn't text you at first to let you know they were calling, right? Everybody's sort of like hiding from everybody, and nobody wants to be sold anymore, right? People love to buy, but they absolutely hate to be sold. And so, as salespeople, in fact, I do a lot of speaking, and I'll go to these events. And first question I ask every time, I ask around the room, say, what do you think of when you think of sales? And everybody around the room is like, oh, yuck, pushy, all these just awful, words and ideas come up. And it's because people think of sales as a bad thing. And what enrollment is really about is understanding, right? It's consultative selling is what you would have called it, 20 years ago, right? But it's understanding your client at a level that truly helps you know what they want, what's standing in their way, really diagnosing what's going on with them, what that feels like, and really if it's something that they want to change, and then enrolling them in the vision for what they want to create, and then connecting the dots for them and showing them how you can help them create that vision. So you're enrolling them into the idea, but also into your coaching, into your program, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So the everybody, I think, or most everybody who's not a sociopath, totally acknowledges this idea that no one, the sales process can be, if it's done badly, like really manipulative and no fun and icky. And we've all been in that sales other spot, where someone's tried to sell to us and it's been a really bad experience. One of the things that I've seen over the last several years with enrollment is the leveraging of a lot of technique in enrollment, which it's almost like, okay, well, we're not manipulative in this way, but we've become manipulative in some other way. How do you stay authentic? I mean, again, back to the whole word in your program title, authentic. How do you stay authentic in that process and not just slip into manipulative emotional tactics?
Yeah, I mean, so the key thing with this is that in the transformation space, in the coaching space, like if I went through a certified International Coaching Federation, ICF program, and that whole program was designed around the concept that when you're coaching somebody, true coaching, as they define it, is asking questions, assuming that the person that you're working with has their own answers, but it's not about giving them answers. It's about asking questions and understanding them. And so I'd been a coach for a long time, and I'd also been in sales most of my life, and I really combined those two things. And so what we teach people to do is to not go into the sales process trying to sell anything, but to go into the sales process seeking to understand, to go into it as a coach, asking questions, knowing that they've got their own answers. And then when you do this process right, authentically, you now have a deep understanding of where the client's at. They also have a better understanding, because for the first time, somebody's really sat there and listened to what was going on and asked deep, profound, powerful questions that helps them really see, oh my God, this is what's been standing in my way. Here's what I need to fix to get it. And once they're at that place, then you go from coaching to consulting, and you actually show them how your process, your offer, your work together is going to solve the specific problems they've got, get them the outcome that they want. And so it really allows for an authentic process, because until you fully understand what's going on with the client, what's standing in their way, how bad they really want it, all of those things, you shouldn't even be making an offer. And so many people today just, ask a few questions, poke around a little bit. All they're trying to do is agitate the person enough that they want to make an emotional decision. And absolutely, people buy on emotion and they justify with logic. But if you're going to be authentic about it, your goal is to not get them to buy, but to truly understand them. And then once you understand them, your solution is going to solve their problems and get them what they want. Then you have an opportunity to authentically show them how and make that offer to them at that point.
I love that, because I think the order is so critical. And the fact that you've identified the seek to understand piece, that resolves or eliminates so many of these bad techniques, and not just in the digital marketing space. I mean, even, when I was doing a lot of Fortune 500 work, I'd watch sales folks and it's like you said, a really good salesperson's asking questions. And we even know that in the corporate world, but to watch people put together these 50-page pitch decks, that they'll go through as part of their sales process. And it's like, this is not, if you're doing more talking than you are listening, you're not doing the sales process right. And this coaching and consulting mix, I love, because a lot of people think that coaching and consulting are the same thing, just, different names for the same thing, but they're not. And I think you articulated the difference really, really well, where a coach is asking questions where the assumption is the person has the answers deep inside them. Consulting is also about asking questions, but with the idea that you're problem solving and that your expertise is going to be need to brought to bear in order to solve the problem. I love that pairing. I think that's something people don't understand at all.
100%. And the thing that's interesting is, we've worked with a lot of corporate clients as well, and helped them, and it's really interesting because it's the same process, right? Like, you're still, no matter who you're working with, there's a problem they want solved. That's why they're talking to you. And if you can, and it's oftentimes not the problem you think they want, right? Like, they may want to improve their communication on their team, as an example. And you might have a product or service that's going to help them with that. But why do they want to improve that communication on their team? What's the outcome they're trying to get? What's the problem that they're really trying to solve? And there's probably something far deeper. And so this process of really understanding who you're talking to and what they need is what creates that authentic process.
Yeah. That's great. I love that. And I love that there's the corporate angle to it too, because that I do see so much bad stuff in the corporate selling process. And it may not be as manipulative, but it's probably not particularly effective in the corporate space. They just don't communicate very well. Look, as people are listening to this and they're thinking, okay, I know I have a sales problem. Like that, recognizing that you have a sales problem is pretty easy. You can usually tell, like, I'm not selling, not closing deals. There's a problem. But knowing where the problem is in the sales process is hard. Like, there's so many different things where things can go wrong. And I find when I talk to people and they're not selling well, they immediately think it's the price. They immediately are like, I'm overpriced. That's the problem. How do you help people diagnose the process, like break it down so that they go to the real core issue of their sales problem?
Yeah, that's a great question, because oftentimes people come to me and they're like, I'm struggling with sales, and this is what happened on the call. And what they almost always want is help me know better how to handle those objections at the end. When somebody says, I don't have the money, or I don't have the time, or or I got to think about it, or whatever it is, right? That's what everybody thinks they want to solve. The problem is, why are you getting that objection is the bigger question, right? You've got to understand why. And almost always it's because you didn't properly diagnose the problem, or you didn't properly diagnose the reason they want to fix it. You don't understand why they're really on the call with you, or you just didn't qualify them in some way to make sure they were really a good fit for what you do. Yeah. And so you got to figure out which of those things it really is. Most people just assume objections. Oh, I got to get better at like these one-liners that are, I'm going to say this magic sentence and it's going to make people just, hand me their credit card. It just doesn't work that way. And so what we do to diagnose what's really big is, first of all, we have to help people like get the overall philosophy of, kind of what I'm talking to you about here, and that understanding and all that. And then once a client understands that and they begin taking calls, then we actually do call review. We do practice and role play with them. We customize their script. And so what typically happens is they still at first may struggle in some area. And with the call review, we can diagnose very quickly what they're doing wrong, what they need to improve, and what adjustments they need to make. And if they're still struggling to make the adjustment, then it's oftentimes a mindset issue, right? Like, I don't feel comfortable asking that question, right, or it feels salesy. And so then we got to look at that and figure out what's really going on there. And again, so many people just have the wrong thought process about sales. So we work with them on all those fronts: the tactical piece of how they actually improve, like really understanding what they're doing now, reviewing their calls, practicing with them. And then, that other piece is making sure that their head's on straight and that they feel good about their service and they believe in their service or their offer. Because if they don't, you can't, unless you're a sociopath, you can't sell something you don't believe in, right?
Yeah, that is definitely true. Yeah, and coming out of the software industry, I always joke there's a special place in hell for software sales guys. But I hope my listeners on the Sassy X podcast, the other show I've got, I'm not listening to that at all. But the thing here that I want to call out about the process that you've got, which is really, really critical, is the review and role play process. Because there are a ton of people who do sales training, a ton of people who have programs about selling, and they handle these other two things, right? They'll set up a theoretical construct for the sales process, and they'll talk about mindset. Sometimes they address it, sometimes they don't. But in my experience, you have got to have review and role play and practice and feedback on real live sales calls. Otherwise, this just does not get better. And it's great. I mean, when we look at any kind of program design, we talk about surrounding things with, skills, mentorship, and accountability. You've got the mentorship piece in place here where you're looking at the specific individual situations and correcting them. That's great. I just don't think you can do this without that.
Yeah, and the thing is, that was the thing we noticed, was nobody else was doing that. And so it's funny because we will often get people that come to us, and, they'll go through, our first couple of modules, and they'll be like, I feel like I know all of this. And I'm like, that's great. I'm glad that you know all of this. But knowing it and doing it are two different things. Hang in there. Let's get to the call reviews. And then a couple of weeks later, they're like, oh my God, like that review, like I didn't realize that I was missing all of this. Like I thought I was doing that and I wasn't. And we're like, yeah, that's okay. Now now and when we do reviews, the way we actually do it is we get a transcript of their call. And so when they get back their call, we actually give them the transcript highlighted with annotations. Right here, did you hear that tone change in their voice? Why didn't you ask about that? Here's a question you could have asked right here to open them up a little bit, right? And so they get this transcript back with specific step-by-step tactical things that they can do. And so then they know for the next call, okay, I know where I messed up. And then the role play and the practice just really caps that all up so that they can do it on the next call.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I don't see a lot of that kind of review. I mean, I see like call review where it's like upload the video and I'll come back and give you some ideas, but you guys do that whole transcript thing and you've blocked it out with the non-verbals and the verbals right. in there. And that's really good stuff. Let me pivot really quickly to the work that you do. So we've kind of already started talking about the process a little bit, but what do you see are the big barriers that your clients, you've got a process in place, and when people get stuck, in the process, where are they typically getting stuck?
The number one thing that we see that gets people stuck is they're trying to sell instead of trying to serve.
Yeah.
And so what really happens is they're not listening, right? Because like 5 minutes into the sales call, they'll hear something that maybe suggests that this person, might not have enough money to hire them, or, there's just some other little thing. And so then they just get in their head, they stop listening and they start thinking, man, I don't know if this is closable. What am I going to do? And they either check out or, their energy changes, right? Because they're trying to sell. And what I can tell you is, we have trained hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of coaches. And the number one thing that they tell us is, when I stopped trying to sell and I just focused on serving and actually truly understanding the person that I was talking to and what was going on, like I literally, we hear from people all the time. We're like, I was on a sales call the other day. The guy literally had no money, but we sat there on the phone and he found a way. Like he borrowed money. He got on the phone, while he was on, put me on hold, called his mom, used her credit card, said he was going to go sell his car. I mean, we've literally seen that because, the person they were talking to realized that the transformational result they wanted, they were only going to get it if they made that level of commitment.
Right.
And they trusted the person that they were talking to because they used that authentic enrollment process.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm smiling here a little bit as you're talking to this, because this totally is me. Like I will be completely transparent here about this. I always joke that, there's a typical mindset thing of people who absolutely need the sale or want the sale. And there's a lot of discussion about that mindset problem, right? So you come to the sales call a little too hungry, and people can sense it from you and you're trying too hard to close it. And that's when people get a little manipulative and stuff. And I always joke, I have the opposite problem. I get one little thing in the sales call and I'm like, yep, you're not interested, move on. And I'll emotionally disconnect from the call really, really quickly. And I've had to work on that. It's a problem that I see in my own conversations with folks. And I'm the exact opposite.
That's what we really do. Good salespeople is we problem solve. Like we really understand the problem at a deep enough level, like the seek to understand thing that you highlighted earlier. Right. We really seek to understand. And once we have that understanding, there's a solution to every problem.
Sure.
And the other thing too is, I got my start in shoe sales for Florsheim shoes when I was a teenager. And, somebody gave me a really good bit of advice early on. He said, hey, don't try to sell anybody. Try to serve them. And so it was really funny because I had this manager and he saw me do this once and he got really mad at me. But people would come into the store and occasionally I'd be like, hey, this, your foot, this isn't, we don't have something that's going to work for you. I would send them down down to Rockport, at the end of the mall or whatever, because I was like, hey, this is really going to be better. And I remember I had a boss who got really upset when he heard me do this once. And I said, hey, look, trust me, and I was a top sales guy in the area, right? And as a teenager. And he's just like, yeah, but I can't believe you did that. And I said, just watch. And so like a couple of weeks later, that guy basically sent in, he didn't come in, but 2 or 3 people over the next week came in that he had sent in. And so I ended up selling and one guy bought like 3 pairs of $200 shoes, right? So I ended up doing like $2,000 in sales from the guy I sent away who wanted a $112 pair of shoes. Right. Now, I could have sold him the $112 pair of shoes. I'll bet you money he would have come back a couple of weeks later when they weren't working for him. He would have returned them, and we would have had a pair of shoes we couldn't sell. Right. And so we actually lost money on that deal. And so I learned from a mentor of mine very early on that if you focus on service, then you're going to make more sales.
Yeah. Yeah. For those of us old enough to know, it's Miracle on 34th Street, Santa sending people down away from Macy's to.
Oh, it's funny. I saw that over Christmas, and I'd completely forgotten about that scene where he sends everybody away, and they're all mad at him, same exact thing, and then all of a sudden, yeah, that's a great analogy.
Oh, that's awesome. Peter, you are now running a really successful coaching franchise, essentially, well, franchise is the wrong word, but a program, and people are coming in. Obviously, you've built that up, from your experience in a number of different things. If you could go back to the beginning and sort of whisper into young Peter's ear some advice that would have made the process of growing this practice a little bit easier for you, what advice would you give yourself?
And this is advice I give anybody who's innovating, because we were innovating. We were like, hey, we've got this process that works. We know it works for us. How do we get it into the heads of other people so they understand it and can learn it? Because it's one thing to know a thing. It's another thing to be able to teach a thing, right? Yeah. And get people to truly grasp it. And so I think that, the best advice I would give myself, going back then was, hey, as you're innovating, it's okay to make mistakes. Right? It's okay to fail forward. And so, it was like at first, early on, every time I made a mistake, I found myself beating myself up, oh my gosh, we can do better, that sort of thing. And what I've really learned is that when you're just, again, completely authentic and forthright, and, and you're really focused on learning from every mistake, it just keeps getting better and better. And so no matter where you're at in starting your business, or continue to grow your business, if you're making mistakes, it's probably a sign you're on the right path. Keep going, keep getting back up, dust yourself off, and don't give up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. And, as we talk to our clients and help them put programs together and design stuff, the first thing I tell them is, whatever you do, whatever you design, it's going to be wrong. Just like, that's just the way it is. Just deal with it, suck it up. It's going to be wrong, but get it out in the marketplace, do something with it. So that's great advice. Peter is great. I'd love to spend a little more time. Unfortunately, we're out of time. You've been really gracious to carve out some time in your day for this, so we appreciate that. One last question before we go. People want to connect with you guys, figure out, learn a little bit more about the process and a little bit more about authentic enrollment. Where's a great place for them to start?
So I've actually got a free training on our process and how it works and why it works that I put together, really set it up just for your viewers. They can go to authenticenrollment.com/Frank Bria, and that'll be up and ready for them.
Great. Thank you. That's very generous of you to do. And that link is on the show notes page and below the video. So if you're out and about listening, come on back to the show notes page and connect through to that training. Thank you very much. Peter, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. It was great being here.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for being with us on the 6 to 7 Figure Show. I've been your host, Frank Bria. Just a quick reminder about the free high-ticket program, Core Offer Black Book. Contains more than 60 pages of standard operating procedures on how to run your coaching, consulting, or expert-based service business. You can download that for free at the show's homepage, 6to7.show. That's 6to7.show for your free Black Book. We will see you on the next episode of the 6 to 7 Figure Show. Make it happen.